Part 3 of my Awaken series. I want to discuss manifesting blockages and what are blockages. And I'm also going to talk about how to navigate through the marketing of what most people have been taught to believe blockages are, and also talk about the implications of what real blockages mean, and the implications of what the marketing wants you to believe and wants you to think. Okay, there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of there's just a lot of deception, or just like unconscious information being pushed around, and I don't like it and I'm tired of it, so I'm going to talk about it. Okay. So here's the thing. If you are interested, or if you heard of blockages or what manifesting blockages are, you probably are connected to law of attraction. In my second video in this series, I did talk about law of attraction, and I feel like that's a very important video to watch. I also, in my first Awaken series, the first video, in that series, I was also talking about beliefs and belief systems, and helping people awaken to what it actually means to believe in something, and not what the ego understands it, or the way that most people have been taught. A lot of people want to have these good values, and they want to have these good higher truths, but if they don't, they're not honest, or if they don't have a way of connecting to a source that helps them to see clearly, where things are not lighting up, or where things aren't making sense, it's going to be hard for people. And there's more voices and more influences of people regurgitating the same stuff, and yet people are still having a hard time living what they believe. Okay, so I highly recommend looking into my 2 other videos in my Awaken series. They have the same thumbnail. That's pretty much the style of my videos. So that way you know what videos group together and where they belong. Okay. All right. So most people understand blockages as a subconscious thing, like it's something you're not aware of. That's what subconscious means, right? So when people say things like, oh, you can't manifest because you have blockages, and then they tell you have blockages, but then they also can't give you any way of solving how to remove these blockages. Now, the way that I've seen some people try to do it is through selling you shit. Okay? They'll try to sell you things like affirmations, subliminal affirmations. They'll give you something to do. Maybe hypnosis is somewhere in there, right? But at least hypnosis has more merit to it than the things that they're also trying to sell you. What else are they doing? Oh yeah, they're also telling you that you need to believe more. You need to believe more, and you have like subconscious blockages because you don't believe enough, or there's some kind of thing that they'll either distract you with some kind of manifesting tool outside of yourself, or they'll try to sell you a course, or they'll try to do something like that, and doesn't really get much anywhere, right? And most people only talk about blocks in terms of how to sell you something, or how to gaslight you into thinking that the reason why you can't make manifestation work is because you got something that you don't even understand or see, and they don't even understand or see it either, so they can't help you there. So it's just like, oh yeah, you got a problem, but you have no way of knowing what this problem is, or what exactly is blocking you, or what exactly is getting in the way, right? And that's kind of mean to do that to people, and it's irresponsible, right? It's like you set them up with law of attraction, and they get really excited over that, and it means something to them, and there's some truth to that, which makes people believe in it even more, correct? But then, when it doesn't work for them, you just gaslight them, and then tell them it's their fault, and that's not fair. It's irresponsible. And even then, law of attraction has not been taught responsibly either. And if you watched my other video right before this one in my series, you would know what I'm talking about. Okay? All right. Another thing that I've seen people try to do in the manifesting community is to not listen or not hear or pay attention to anybody who does not believe the way that you believe, that they're people with closed minds, or they're people who have limiting beliefs, or these people are not as empowered as you are because they don't want to take accountability for how they manifest their life, and things like that, or they don't want to believe that they have more control over their life than they think, right? So it's kind of like a little bit of a superiority thing going on there. People have a hard time recognizing that, just because someone isn't quote unquote awakened doesn't necessarily mean that they're better or worse than you. Okay. And it's that type of thinking that creates like this spiritual superiority where people want to, identify people as like background people or like NPCs or, and I understand where they're coming from that, but the way that they mention it or talk about it, it's not really necessary to even look at people that way or to even tell people to look at people this way. People who are influencers might do this, and it kind of teaches people to follow that example, and that's incorrect, okay? And that's an ego trip, and that's not necessary, okay? Judging other people who are not like you is not gonna help you with your manifesting blockages, okay? That's not gonna help you. Another thing is that people don't want to be around people who don't believe in law of attraction, or anybody who criticizes it, or people who say, oh, it doesn't work, or it doesn't make sense, or they're frustrated with it. There's this toxic positivity environment around the realm or the community, or the talk of manifesting or manifesting blockages and law of attraction, right? No one really wants to hear these things because people are trying to find what works for them and it's meaningful to them, which I totally get and understand. However, it's just been marketed to them more than anything, so that way other people can get money from it. But I'm not saying it ends there. I mean, it's just a journey, it's a path. In fact, most people start their awakening through connecting with law of attraction anyway. They start their awakening through trying to see more to life, which makes sense, okay? And I don't think anyone, is weird or bad or dumb for doing that, My only issue is that when people go on their journey and then they don't have anyone or any way or any group to talk about things, to help them out through it, okay? And this goes back into my cult series. If you haven't seen my cult series, I highly recommend that, and that's how I'm able to share so much about how I know about how these things run. All right, so another point I'd like to make: if your beliefs require other people to believe like you, that is not a belief, that is a fear-based belief. That's brainwashing and that's mind control. Okay, I've seen this a lot in the community, where if anyone says anything that they disagree with, or anything that goes along of the lines of, sometimes people want to believe like, oh, it can be super easy, and oh, you don't have to work hard, or you don't have to work to manifest your life. And then when they hear people say the opposite, or anything like that, they're like, oh, if you think you have to believe in that this way, that's more work, and so you have limiting beliefs, believing that you have to do that way, when it could be a lot easier. Or it's like, I don't know, there's some weird beliefs there, because yes, believing in that you have to work really, really hard can, in a sense, be a limiting belief, but in some cases there could be values that grow from that. However, people are not seeing the bigger picture, and they're saying that to believe in anything that makes it harder for yourself is somehow a manifesting blockage, and to tell people or to mention people these things is a limiting belief. Why would you believe in that when you can believe in things that make your life easier, right? Yeah, but it's ungrounded. It's ungrounded, okay? If your beliefs require other people to believe like you, then those are not beliefs. That's brainwashing, and that is ungrounded, and it creates a lot of arguing within the community, okay? And here's the thing, if it really were that easy, if law of attraction really were that easy, and if it really were that easy to not believe in these, you know, quote unquote limiting beliefs that are probably more grounded in reality than the way most of law of attraction has been taught, I forgot where I was going with that, but if it really were that easy, you would have it figured out by now. If it really were that easy, obviously it's not. Why is it? And I mentioned it earlier in my my last video in this series, my second video. It's like, if it really were that easy, why do we have to get coaches and books and this and that? It's really not difficult to understand. But then when people go into the idea of blockages, then we start to get more cult mentality. People are so loyal to who it is that they're following, or their influencer, or they're so emotionally connected to people's manifesting stories, and how, you know, they claim how law of attraction made them rich, or it made them famous, or this and that. And I talk about that earlier, okay, in my other video, so I highly recommend you watch that, of course. All right. This is where things start to become very slippery, okay? Because when people start talking about how it's not working for them, or they're frustrated, the law of attraction surface level spiritual community is very, very culty in this way, because they don't want to hear that. It's toxic positivity. They only want to hear the things that agree with their perspective, because anything that, you know, threatens it or criticizes it, or makes it seem like it's harder for them to manifest, or that they have to put in work at all, if anything, that's a limiting belief, and that they should not believe that, and they have to like call that out and say, oh, you're spreading limiting beliefs. And just like, no, you're not. They're not spreading limiting beliefs. Okay, there's some people who truly believe that to manifest you have to be delusional. And I've seen this more times than you probably think. But yeah, I've seen people on TikTok say, I'm going to be so delusional so that law of attraction works for me. Or I'm going to, you know, like they act as if to a delusional state of thing where it's like pathological lying or something. I don't know. It's very strange like that. And they think that's the way to make it work. You know, I'm just like, that is like the most ungrounded thing ever, you know. And people listen to this and people buy into this, and I cannot imagine anyone who would do that without clearly meeting the way the reality is, okay? Yeah, it really gets that bad. It gets that bad, apparently. Okay, so instead of talking about the things that are important or that need to be spoken about, it gets squashed under toxic positivity, and then we get people who don't want to hear it, okay? And yeah, and if anyone wonders why law of attraction people can be so culty and be so sensitive, they don't want to hear anything with that, is because if they were to not believe in these things, how do I say this? I mentioned it better in my first Awaken video series. It's the first one is about beliefs. Because if they were to stop believing in law of attraction, they would realize how much fear they have. And they would realize, you know, they would realize the darkness that it's become and how it's influenced them. And it's a very harsh reality for people to look at and to see, and I get it. And that's why there has to be this cult following for law of attraction, because that's the cult following in law of attraction is the only way that is even making law of attraction a thing, right? Because no one's being honest about it. All right, there's a reason why it's not working for you. There's a reason why it's not making sense. And no one wants to be constantly gaslit and told that you just need to believe more. You just need to stop talking or meeting with people, or who believe in these limiting beliefs, because then they're influencing you. It's like you don't even realize you're being influenced to believe in ungrounded spiritual principles, and that are really fear-based beliefs and not belief-based beliefs. Okay, these types of things, people don't want to add or rewrite law of attraction, that they want to stick with law of attraction and be loyal to that, and that doesn't make sense. I've seen people who are still frustrated with law of attraction, yet they still believe in it, or they still haven't found a way to make it work for them, but they'll still believe it and they'll still talk about it. And that's very strange to me, because it's very easy to understand. I don't get it. And if things aren't working out for you, you have the freedom to believe in what you believe and to go into other directions. And again, I talked about this more in my first video. These things are layered. Okay. My first video on my series. Okay. My Awaken series. So here's the truth about blockages and the way that they're teaching you. They're teaching you in a way that is a distraction. They actually don't have any way to help you with your blockages. If they claim to, they're full of bullshit, or if they do, they're hiding it behind an expensive paywall that costs an arm and a leg to get into, right? Or just things like that. It's very strange. It's very strange to me. And it shouldn't have to be that difficult. And honestly, there's really nothing that they've learned about law of attraction that you can't learn from reading a book. Right? There's lots of books on this stuff. Like, there's lots of resources on this stuff. Why are people still scrambling to get the right information, or to find the right results, or to do it the right way, and to manifest this and that, right? It's a very irresponsible way to look at manifestation. It's a very irresponsible way to teach it. And honestly, the people who are benefiting from that are the people with these channels, and these people selling you things like abundance meditations and, these quote unquote success stories of manifesting success stories that they're either one, making up, or two, they don't even recognize how real manifesting works, and that there are other spiritual principles at play, which I talked about in my second video in this series. Okay. And that they don't even realize that there's more to manifesting than law of attraction, that law of attraction even isn't what it claims to be. And it's more marketing than it is truth. All right. If you've been on this video, if you've seen this video, you probably already seen my other ones, but just in case you haven't, it's very important that you do. So that way it makes sense to you. All right. I forgot what I was saying. I'll remember. Hold on. But yeah, the community doesn't really have anything to offer you as far as removing these blockages. They just give you something to do, but it's more like distractions and wishing and waiting and all this other cult ego that you don't need to pay attention to or follow with. All right? You don't need to be delusional to make manifestation work in your life. Okay, so let me tell you what blockages actually are. Blockages are not real. They are illusions. Illusions are not real. Blockages are not real. Why do we act like blockages are real? Because it's the way that you've been told, like it's some kind of external thing, or that you have to like pay into, or like, I don't know, they'll try to sell you something and make it like it's external, like you can't do this on your own type of thing, like you need them, or they have some kind of spiritual gift or expertise. I don't know what it is that they're selling you. I've never personally bought that, right? But anyway, it's either that, or it is so subconscious that you don't even know how to deal with it or recognize it or identify it. Either way, it's like if you got abundance blocks, okay, well, how do you identify that, or how do you work on that? How do you, how do you actually do that? Like, how? And you actually find that it's not as easy as 1, 2, 3, the way that they tell you. Like, there's these, videos on YouTube like, oh, just do these 5 steps and you'll manifest, and that's bullshit. Okay, everybody's life is different, and everyone's got different quote unquote blocks. Everyone's got different different ways, you know what I mean? And so it's not going to apply to everyone or work for everyone in the right way. So if they're talking about those things and making their channel about that, that is just for clicks and views, and it's just something that they make to feed the machine that is YouTube, and having a following and a platform and an influence. And that's what a lot of influencers do, is that they kind of have to sacrifice their humanity or play the game of the influencer social media platform in order to get views and clicks and money and things like that. And then they turn around and they say, oh, look how rich I am. It's because I use law of attraction. It's like, no, it's because you manipulated people and you created a cult following and you lied to people, and then you try to show off the things that you've gained from manipulating people and gaslighting people, and then you claim that was because you believed in law of attraction. And people don't recognize that or realize that, but that's what a lot of people are doing. These law of attraction influencers make more money off of converting people to the idea of law of attraction and selling them shit, rather than their belief in law of attraction alone. And it's very similar to what these scammers are doing. If you've seen these scammers on YouTube, and there's a lot of the self-help community is using law of attraction for this very same reason, is to gaslight people and to control people and to manipulate people and to create a toxic positivity environment. And I really have a lot of empathy for the people, because some people really take law of attraction so literally that they believe they have to become delusional, right? Or they believe they have to like sacrifice some of their humanity, you know, by judging other people as lesser or unawakened or this and that. It's very strange like that, because I really wonder, how does anyone really make it in this abusive system without sacrificing their humanity? Because if you really understand how the institutions work here and what it's really like, I don't get it. I don't understand how anyone could do that and claim to be so spiritual and not be conscious of the impact that they're having on the world around them. But I guess that can happen to anyone, because people don't understand how they function, and they don't understand cult mentality, and they don't understand how marketing works. So I guess that's possibly another reason why. But at the same time, there's more pressure on these influencers to keep things the way that they are running, even though it's not authentic, because that's where their money is. And if they were to change the narrative, they would lose their money. They would have a different following. Okay? I forgot. I keep forgetting when I make these videos what I'm talking about. But anyway, yes, subconscious. All right. So obviously, the real way to overcome blockages is that there are multiple ways to overcome blockages. And I would not suggest that there is any one way to remove blockages, and there is not any one particular modality for removing blockages. Some people want to sell you things like that, you know, with their energy healers, and they'll say, we'll remove your money blocks or whatever. Yeah, but that's just energy healing. You know, that's not necessarily the full scope of what it means to heal or to remove a block and what these things are. Okay, so blockages are basically programs. They're basically programs that are not real. And I think you understand what I mean by programs if you're interested in the spiritual community. Another thing I forgot to mention, law of attraction in of itself is a program, and that is also blocking you too. They want to talk about blockages. I want to talk about why you can't manifest. Well, yeah, you believe in law of attraction. That's a big blockage. That's not going to get you anywhere. So, yeah, subconscious blockage, law of attraction. Think about that. The things that you even believe in are a blockage in of itself, and then they want to tell you that you got other problems. No, they got problems. They don't understand. They don't follow what they believe in. That's why they can't help you, and that's why everyone's struggling. And that's why it's very culty. And in fact, that's why law of attraction has infiltrated the self-help community. I think I mentioned in my second Awaken video in this series about how Scorpio, the astrology sign Scorpio, has a lot to do with self-help and transformation. It also has to do with occult and magic. So isn't it interesting how the self-help community, multi-billion-dollar industry, will utilize, watered down spiritual principles, super watered down spiritual principles, and then use that in their marketing scheme for self-help. I've seen this a lot in scams, pyramid schemes, like just about any life coach out there or any influencer will utilize or talk about law of attraction. I'll buy into that, and I think they get paid to do that, because any real normal person, not necessarily spiritual, would probably look at this deeper if they were responsible and realize that this is not something they should be telling people or teaching people. So so the self-help industry is using this law of attraction. They'll change the name and call it law of action or whatever. I'm pretty sure they get paid off. And I'm pretty sure they mention this or teach their followers this, or their recruits this, to have more control. I'm telling you, they make more money off of converting people to law of attraction and the implications of that than they do by claiming of having abundance from believing law of attraction in of itself. That's what all these fake gurus are doing. They make more money scamming people than they do off of the things that they claim to know or believe in. And that's really sad. That's really sad. These abundance coach, they make more money selling people abundance courses than they do from the abundance that they claim to have with the knowledge that they have. They don't. They get more money selling people shit they don't need than they do from the beliefs that they claim to have. Or it's so bizarre, and it really makes me so sad. Because this is how people are introduced to manifestation. That's how they're introduced to spirituality. It's a surface level stuff. And I don't know, I'm trying to fix my lighting here. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why it got darker. That's the best I can do. Okay, I think that works better. Okay, so yeah. And another thing I want to talk about is that these communities with these gurus, like, they're not together. There's no emotional connection. Okay, it's pretty much like everyone's out for themselves type of thing, and it's like who can get abundance the fastest, right? And that's what these communities do. It's like they'll have these Facebook groups, they'll have these like members only type of thing. They'll like try to sell you membership subscriptions, right? But it's very culty, because they only want to hear people's experiences that agree with the mindset of the limiting belief that is law of attraction in of itself. That is the blockage of law of attraction in of itself. Okay, so if you have anything you wanted to say about your frustrations, about how it doesn't work or this and that, you're not going to be welcome there, and no one's going to listen to you. And in fact, they'll probably gaslight you. Or if you are, more sincere, they'll probably encourage you to stick with law of attraction, even though it's frustrating for you. The real reality is that it should not be frustrating if it really were that easy. They're lying to you. They have nothing to give you. They don't have any way of helping you. And I've seen people, who do have, quote unquote, spiritual gifts, and they want to charge you an arm and a leg to remove your blockages. Okay, healing, removing blockages is not as simple as 1, 2, 3, and there's many ways to do it, and there's a balance to this. It's most people's egos, when they're barely awakening, that's where their surface level spiritual community has a lot of followers, because it doesn't require them to do any shadow work. It doesn't require them to be any level of authentic. It does not require them anything other than to believe and to be a consumer, and to join the cult, basically, and to think like everyone else, and your dreams are for sale. That's how they see you, and that's how they treat you, and they get better and better at deceiving people. Okay. I've even seen some people claim to be like daughter or granddaughter or something of some kind of guru, and then they want to use that as their marketing plan so that people listen to them more. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's really sad that they want to use someone else's good name to try to convince other people that they're worth something or that they have anything to say. That's really disgusting. Honestly, that's gross. Even if it's true, like, why would you even say that or use that? It's obviously because you're trying to get people's money and attention. I don't like that. Another thing, I know I'm getting to it, but I'm getting ideas as I go along. So bear with me. I know this video is kind of long. Yes, blockages are illusion. Blockages are not real. The real way to deal with your blockages and illusions is to do shadow work, and that's a more grounded way to do it. Okay, shadow work is what's going to help you, and just look into my shadow work series. Best thing I could tell you. Just look into my shadow work series. It's going to explain everything, okay? Everything I try to mention here is just not going to do it any justice, because I will explain it very deeply and thoroughly from my own experience, and that's what my channel's about, and that's what I specialize in. So just watch that series if you haven't, or if you don't understand it or whatever, just go and watch it. Just watch everything, okay? Because it all makes sense and it all works on each other. And it's in fact, it's my experience in those things and my ability to talk about those things is why I can even talk about this, okay? Okay, so anyway, shadow work, it's the ego. It's the ego that's the limited part of you. That's not the real you. That's the you that's programmed, and that is the you that is creating this reality, okay? To expand your consciousness, your reality is going to reflect that higher consciousness. However, the way most manifestation has been taught to us by the community is that you can get one thing in specific, okay? Shadow work doesn't necessarily do that to get anything in specific. When people want things specifically, most people, when they think about manifestation and they're into it and they're barely awakening and they haven't done any consciousness work, what they really want out of law of attraction, what they really want out of manifestation is things to feed their ego. They want fame, they want money, they want a big house, they want nice cars, they want all these things so that way they can show off, because that's what all these other influencers are doing, is showing off and having the big house and having the big abundance, then telling people the same shit that doesn't work, right? That's essentially what they want to do. So it's interesting because, the values of the influencer are actually working, because the people who are I guess you could say, are barely awakening are grabbing onto that, because it's their ego that's grabbing onto that, okay? Because they have the same or similar values, and some people are actually genuinely sincere, and that's a whole different story, because it affects them differently, okay? And it just depends. My time in a religious cult has been a direct reflection of my experience there, and what that can happen to a person who falls into the cult of law of attraction while being genuine and meaningful and really wants to make it work, and then it's not going to work for them, okay? I don't know, it's getting so dark here. Let me try to I don't know. That is so weird. It was brighter earlier. I don't know. I'm sorry. Just deal with the darkness. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I have this little light here, but it's not strong enough, and oh my god. I'm gonna try. Okay? I'm gonna try this. I'm sorry this video is all over the place. Yes, shadow work. Do your shadow work. Shadow work was going to bring you closer to your higher self, going to bring you closer to your authentic self. Most people's egos are really, really overly eager to be the god of their reality, or their creator of their own reality, that they need to realize that they need to have, in a sense, the mind of God. Great power comes great responsibility. You need to bring more of your higher self into this, so that way you understand what you really want and who you really are. Because people that are not as awakened or barely awakening don't even know the real you. They only have the ego version of them. And if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you want. And you think you are what you aren't, because you've been programmed to believe that way. Okay? And this is what shadow work is. All right. Now, here's another thing I wanted to talk about. How do you overcome limiting beliefs? How do you overcome blockages? Number 1 is shadow work. Number 2 is virtues and values. Okay, so when we have limiting beliefs, they make us value things that devalue ourselves, that make us not love ourselves, and to make us judgmental, and it blocks our way of living in abundance and getting the things that we want, because it's these things that tie us down that are creating our reality, because we are motivated by our ego, which is programmed by things that do not bring abundance, and that's why you have blockages, and that's why it doesn't make sense to you. Another thing is that law of attraction in of itself does not promote healthy virtues and values. They just basically tell you to believe, and that's it. They basically want to give you something to do, and that's it. They basically want to sell you something, and that's it. Or they want to sell you something at super high price and this and that, and it's just all a game to them, and it doesn't really do anything. Okay, all right. Law of attraction is very, very ungrounded. Very ungrounded. It doesn't work for a lot of people. Okay, and if it is working for people, you know, like I said, everyone is different, right? And there are other spiritual principles and other laws that they do not tell you and that they do not mention, and they should, but you might be accidentally utilizing these universal laws to make something work out for you. And it just depends on the situation and things like that, but there's a whole nother thing to that, okay? And that's why it's very difficult for people, you know, after they have like a success story. It's like, okay, but what about the people after? You know, that's another thing. What about the people after? If they say they have this big success and they have this success story with law of attraction, why is it that it's only like, it might be on the spotlight, like an influencer might put that on the spotlight, or they might say something like, oh my God, look at what I did, or look at how I helped a person, and now look at their story. And it's like only that one person, right? But like, and then that gets on the spotlight. But what about that person 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 5 months from now? Like, how is that working out for them? They only want to put a spotlight on things that relate to them, but it doesn't really matter. You know, it's just, if it's good news, and they'll just automatically contribute it to law of attraction, you know, and that's not how it works. That's not how reality works. And it's clearly obvious, and it's clearly true, because if it did, we wouldn't be in this mess. People wouldn't be stuck. All right. That's another thing to look out for. Okay. I'm mostly talking about navigating the marketing of the way of blockages and law of attraction, because that's how most people understand it. And I need to acknowledge those things so that people can have a better understanding of what else to do and what not to look towards. All right. Okay, so I mentioned shadow work, I mentioned virtues and values. Another thing is that you need community. You need real community, not these manifestation cult communities. People don't develop real friendships or emotions there. They don't do that. Everyone's there just to feed their own ego. There's not as much vulnerability there. Okay, you need people who can help you, and honestly, you just need to talk. You know, we may not have the answers. We may not have the answers of what exactly how to make this work or whatever, but we are not going to get anywhere near the answers if we are not doing our shadow work, if we're not doing that checks and balances, and if we're not being honest, and if we're judging people the entire time we're doing it, and if we don't know who we are, we're not going to get anywhere closer to that. Okay, so you just need the exact opposite of what that is, right? So you need to do shadow work, and you need to cultivate practical virtues and values. You need to be grounded, and okay, all right, and I already talked about more deeper into shadow work and how to get started into that and things like that. Okay, that's some other things. Another thing is that this goes generally on the same lines of healing yourself, becoming more of your authentic self. The judgment, the ego is programs, it's fear programs. It's also, there's a lot of pain there. There's a lot of emotional stuff there, which is why I mentioned why you need a community and you need, you know, people to talk to and things like that, because part of releasing blockages is very emotional for anyone who's done any shadow work or anyone who who has released any blockages, they would know it's emotional, okay? And you need people to help you with that. You need people to support you with that. And I've learned this on my own spiritual journey. I know it's something people don't want to do, but you got to do it, okay? You need people, you need support. Another thing is when you hear people's successes, or you hear people, getting help, they always mentioned, yeah, it's because I had a good support team. It's because I had people that believed in me. It's because I had people that listened to me. It's because I had people that loved me. And that's one of the things they'll always say, it's like, how did they get where they are? It's like, because of the people. That's very important to do and have, okay? But a lot of the surface level community is so broken up and is so divided and is so culty, you're not going to get much out of it, okay? Because emotions are real. Vulnerability is real. Being honest is real. And they don't want to do that or deal with that because they can't control you when you're being real, okay? We need more people expressing that. All right, even if we don't know the answers, but just being honest about it helps big time. Another thing, going back to healing, is that there's different types of healings and there's different types of emotional blockages. I did mention occult magic, and I also did mention magic is also in the same realm of Scorpio, self-help and transformation. And occult has a lot to do with manifestation. That's what magic is. And if you haven't even heard my other series, you need to do that, otherwise you're not going to understand what I'm trying to say here, okay? There's a reason why, the self-help community and the spiritual community are going together, is because they're both in the realm of Scorpio, all right? That's why they're doing this. But real spirituality, real manifestation requires what I said before, shadow work. It requires connection. It requires the virtues and values to do that. It requires the community, like a good community, okay? You can't sell people those things. You can't sell it to them. You can't market hard work. You can't market vulnerability. They're not going to do that. They're not going to teach you that. They're not going to want to do that, okay? And it really sucks that people feel like they have to pay to have that. All right? And it takes responsibility off of a person. It takes responsibility off of a person to believe in things that do not require self-reflection or these virtues of values or responsibility. That's not what it is. Cults mentality, they don't want you to have any responsibility at all. In fact, they'll just break you down and then blame everything on you, and that's not necessary. All right, cult psychology is another thing you need to learn. You need to understand how your psychology functions. You need to see these things, and I know it's like things that are hidden, things that are in the underground. It's subconscious. It's like the moon, but I'm telling you, this is where you need to look, because you're not going to find this anywhere else. Never going to find this anywhere else. All right. Because they can't make money off of that. That's simply the truth. They can't make money off of that, and they can't control you with that. That's why they will never talk about these things, or if they do, it's super watered down, and they market it so that way other people can, like I said, buy into it, things like that. So don't go for that. Don't go for that. Those are more grounded and practical ways to do that. And I have a shadow work series, and I am teaching shadow work, and I'm teaching it as I'm learning it, okay? And there's lots of books and there's other resources and things like that to look into, all right? But if you notice, when they talk about these things, they never talk about it in terms of manifesting. They never talk about it in terms of removing blockages. They talk about it as it is, and that is shadow work. But inadvertently, the side effect of doing shadow work is more abundance, because the abundance is you. The abundance is you before the programming. The abundance is you realizing who you are. The abundance is you growing from experiences that caused you to not believe in yourself, and that caused you to believe in things a certain way, okay? Those things feel more real to you than the reality of who you are. We're going to break those illusions so that way you actually are empowered, and that you actually do have a connection to source and spirit and your higher self, so that way you know more of who you are, and you will therefore know what you want, and you will therefore have a better chance at understanding where your priorities lie, and you will not listen to the lies of your ego. You will not listen to the lies of the way the world is programmed. You get the programs, you get the blockages from the world. You're not going to get it from real spirit. Okay, another thing, community is great. People got different spiritual gifts that they can help you with. There's lots of different ways to get more in conscious with your subconscious mind, and just living your life more authentically will help you realize that. Okay, some people are energy healers, some people are tarot readers, some people, do Reiki or dream interpretation, or or just sometimes just being honest and sharing their stories, sharing their experience, sharing, just practical things itself is also very, very, very helpful. That's what I mean, is the community. You cannot do this on your own. Most people's egos and the way that we're programmed is that everything is so competitive and we have to, do things a certain way, and everyone's so scared of being vulnerable, so no one has emotional connection. It makes you feel alone. It makes you feel lonely. Okay, the people who are selling you manifestation bullshit are taking advantage of that, because you are a lot more powerful when you have emotional connection and you can regulate your emotions better. Okay, and you need that stability. Because if you try to work on yourself and you're neglecting any one aspect of yourself, whether it's your health or your emotions or whatever, it's not going to work. Okay? Now, there's a very practical and grounded way of doing this, which is what I'm mentioning. There are also more spiritual ways of doing this, which is also what I'm mentioning. Okay? You need a combination of these things, both. You need both of them. Okay? And people who have spiritual gifts, we're supposed to help each other. Okay, because it clears karma. That's also what blockages are. It's also karma. And people have a weird way of viewing karma, and I did talk about karma in my shadow work series. It has little to do with punishment, for what you did, but it's judgments. The judgments are the blockages. The judgments are the illusions, and that's what's preventing you from abundance. You can't have gratitude or unconditional love when you're judging. Therefore, you don't have any abundance, and that's why you have to do this at a level of consciousness that you can understand and deal with by doing your shadow work, so that way it makes sense to you. That way your conscious mind can catch up with higher consciousness. You can't just get it like that, the way that law of attraction is trying to tell you. It's like, get it easy, 1 through 3, and then have all this abundance. I was like, no, abundance is within, and abundance looks different for everyone. And the way they're telling you what abundance is, that's ego. It's not bad to want things, okay? It's not bad to want nice things, but if that's really your only perspective on those things, you're going to be met. You're not going to execute or get closer to those things by being more into your humanity and more to your higher self. In fact, the more you try to do that, you become less involved with humanity and more involved with your selfishness. That's why a lot of these influencers, that they, for as much as they have influence and power and abundance, they sacrifice their humanity by lying to people and by being fake. If you are going to want to be an abundant person, or if you want to be a person that removes your blockages, I would hope that you look out for other people and not just only think about yourself. Unless you want to be like those influencers, then go ahead. But those people aren't getting away with it. Okay, they have karma that they're going to have to deal with too. All right, and no judgment on them. That's their spiritual path, and that's how they function. But if you actually want to understand things better, if you actually want to understand yourself better, if you actually want to go on the journey, do your shadow work. Connect with the community. Okay, express yourself. There's a lot to it. There's probably more than I realize. And even the things that I'm saying, like, there's more to it. Okay, I'm not suggesting 1, 2, 3, that's how it is. Because if you actually do any one of these things, it's going to take you years to really get it. All right? But yeah. there is realness out there. It's just hard to find. But if you are interested in finding it, you're a lot closer than most people who give up. Another thing is that blockages are also your path of growth and development. Believe it or not, people want to look at blockages as, oh, I can't have all this money because I have a blockage. I'm like, no, your blockages are showing you who you are. Your blockages are showing you what you need to work on. Your blockages are showing you what your path is. That's not a bad thing. Don't demonize blockages. Like, please don't demonize blockages. Don't demonize limiting beliefs. Don't be judgmental on people who don't think like you or other people's limiting beliefs. Don't do that, because that's also another blockage, and that is indicating where you are and where your blockages are. I can't tell you how many times I've seen and heard, and also, to some extent personally experienced this, where these abundance coaches, they'll talk about how they're all abundant and this and that and how they want to help you, but then they charge you an arm and a leg, and then you tell them that you can't afford it, and then they make fun of you or they gaslight you because you can't afford it, and they'll say things like, well, I'm sorry you believe in scarcity mindset and that's why you can't afford my shit. And they're not really sorry, or, oh, I'm sorry you buy into the belief of your lack and scarcity, you're not going to get any closer to affording my thing if you believe in that. But they're, it's just really unempathetic, like insensitive stuff that these types of people say to people. It's like, no, it's like, this has nothing to do with me not affording your bullshit course. This has everything to do that you're frustrated because your quote unquote manifestation power or your influence as a guru did not work to manifest people who can afford your course, right? And if you were all abundant, why are you struggling? Why do you have to lie to people? Why do you have to do this? Think about it. Okay, so another thing is that you're going to grow as a person. And that's what real abundance is. All right. And if we knew all the answers, there would be no point in having the human experience. There'd be no point. So these people that claim to know the answers, these people that claim to make it seem that easy, they're lying to you, because it's not that easy. And it's not that simple. And even though I'm saying the things that I'm saying, there's more to it as well. But we can't do this by being alone and working on ourselves alone. We have to share and we have to express, and we need to talk about these things that are hard to talk about, and we need to do that. That's the only way. That's the only way. So that way we actually have a chance of expanding that perception of what it means to embody this more, when we have other people to help us, other people in their in their experiences and their interests. When we talk about those things, we have a chance, and we have a better chance, okay? And not necessarily that we have all the answers, but we have a better way of breaking the illusions. We have a better way of empowering ourselves. And it hasn't really been done before. And that's why nobody knows, because it hasn't been done before. If it has, it's been hidden and hidden under a cover up and things like that, or it's been, watered down incredibly and marketed, or it's been demonized by other agendas or other religious groups or groups out there, or people who are kind of missing the mystery that is life, and to an extent divinity or whatever. But honestly, you don't even have to be a spiritual person to do your shadow work. You don't even have to be a spiritual person to believe in good virtues and values. You don't have to be a spiritual person to expand and grow what you choose to believe. You just have to be a person who's sincere and honest and authentic and wants to have more of that. Okay? Yeah. Blockages are illusions. Okay? There's many different ways to deal with it. But, let's not let us forget that there's more to it than we realize. Okay, so what are blockages? I just told you what they are. Okay, look into my shadow work series, I explain it better. Look into my other series, that explains it better. Okay, and even if there's things that are left out or there's questions, good, you can ask the questions here, because I'm not going to gaslight you for asking a question. You know, I do live streams, we talk about stuff that's going to help us get a better understanding of people's experiences, and that way we can figure out problem solve, actually problem solve, and make things work. All right. Yeah. I think that's everything. You know, there are blockages that are more hidden, more subconscious. Sometimes we're not going to always figure those out with shadow work, but we do have a better chance at dealing with it, and it's more grounded, and it works out better that way, because we can figure it out through our own experiences and trying to be more aware of what those things are, to identify those things as they're happening. Okay, versus trying to go at it from like ground zero with no idea or no realization of what your blockages even are. If you do a little bit of introspection and working on yourself, you will figure out what those are, and those are basically your judgments. Your blockages are your judgments, but your blockages are also your path. It's also where you need to heal the most. So yeah, that's what blockages are. And they're illusions that your ego falls into and believes in, and they're subconscious because you're programmed. You don't even think about it. But you will become more conscious about it when you experience triggers or when you feel a certain way. And I talk about that in my shadow work series, okay? And I'm also doing eventually a magic series and a occult series talking about manifestation and hermeticism in that more, okay? But yeah, I already mentioned before, if you really want to understand manifesting principles, look into hermeticism, because that's basically what's going to help you, okay? But you'll actually find that you can't do this in an easy, marketable way. You have to work and you have to deal with stuff, okay? If you're an egotistical person trying to, you know, have all this control and power, you're not benefiting anyone like that. You are a menace to society when you do that, so don't do that, okay? We don't want to give irresponsible people all that money and power or whatever. You know, look at what they're doing in the real world today. People aren't conscious. People aren't doing their shadow work. People don't know how to heal. People don't have any real connections. My friend made a video on this, and I'll link it below. It's the collective shadow of humanity, and what I'm talking about here is also in the collective shadow of humanity. Okay? I'm trying to give people a way to work through it and to make sense of it. It's very shadowy. People don't know what it is. People have a hard time talking about it, but the people who do, like me, will talk about it. And we're happy to share, and we're happy to help. All right? And we won't take advantage of you, because we're real and we're sensitive. Anyway. Yeah, there's just way more going on than we realize. Way more. And there's stuff even I haven't figured out or learned or experienced yet, but I promise you, when I do, I will share it. Okay? That's all.